Hey guys, so today I'm going to show you how I do my dip nails. I get asked this question a lot when I do my video tutorials for sewing or other projects and crafts, and I try to keep it pretty simple and neutral, but I think today we're going to do a pretty fun color, so stay tuned to see what color we choose. I actually did a poll over on my Instagram stories and I let my followers decide, so this is the color that they picked. Now, at first glance, you're going to see that my nails are long, except for this one that I broke. These are my natural nails, and they are very thin. I do dip because they just make my nails last. So I am a personal big fan of dip. I've been doing it for ages, and I started doing my own dip 2.5 years ago when I started working where I had to film on a regular basis, and I just couldn't afford to go to the salon every time. So I do my own. I need to redo these, obviously, because I broke one, but they've grown out, and I just need to do a fresh dip. So that's what we're going to do together today. I'm going to trim them all down. So instead of keeping my almond shape, I'm going to kind of make it a little more of a rounded square on the ends and go shorter because of this one. So we'll kind of go through the process, but I want to show you everything that I do, all the steps, so that you too can learn to do your own dip nails. And then of course, all the products that I'm using, I will link in the description below. I do not just stick with one brand. I kind of mix and match because I have tried different brands, different powders, different liquids. There's a lot, and I'm just going to tell you what works best for me, and you can give it a try if you want. All right, let's start with what I use. So obviously I set up a little station. I kind of make it a whole process, and you'll see I have a drill here, and this is actually kind of like a commercial grade, like what you would see at the salons, right? So like it turns on, and yeah, and it has different little bits, and I upgraded to this maybe 1.5 to 2 years into my journey, so I haven't had this one very long, and I really only use it to take the dip off before I soak the last little bit. So I try to get most of it off with this because it's just very fast and easy to do. But this is my tried and true little drill that I use the most, and I really only use these two bits. I have no idea what happened to that one, but these are really the only two that I use on this. But this is just a little battery operated one. And so it's really nice, very inexpensive, linked below. And you can do this whole process with this one. I think I got it at Target, but I'll link one off Amazon if you want to go that route. That's similar, but yeah, this is a great option. You'll see me use this one to really get like the smoothness and all of that before we finish. So definitely recommend, if you don't want to splurge for something like this, especially if you're just getting started, definitely get this. It makes the process so much faster and easier and gives you better control on getting a beautiful, smooth finish. All right. The other things that you're going to need is obviously a really nice file. This is a double-sided file. They are linked below. So this side is a lot coarser for like maybe if you want to scuff it before you soak instead of use the drill, you can do that to get off your dip. But this is a 100 and 180. So 100 on this side, 180 on this side. And I use this for kind of filing and shaping. You're going to need some sort of brush to brush off the powder in between each layer. So I just have a little makeup brush here. Get a fun, cute one. You can use something like this as well. It's totally up to you. Obviously, nail clippers, because we're going to be trimming these down today. I have this right here to help clean up if I get any liquid on the skin. I try to get it off before I dip. I also use this to stir my dip before I start. These little buff pads are going to help you get that smooth finish. It's going to give you that professional look as well. I use these every single time, and I use two every single time. This is an optional thing, and I actually haven't used this before. I just got it. It's a little tray that you can put the dip powder in. Some people find it easier to dip at an angle instead of dipping down into a pot or a little jar. So I'm going to try this today. We'll see how it goes, but I'm only going to use this for the color. I'm going to dip straight into my base powder, which I'll show you in a minute. And then for liquids. Okay, so this is the brand of liquids that I have fallen in love with. And so I will have them linked below. There's one other that comes in this set for cleaning your brush, but I don't need it set out for today. But there's a base, an activator, and a top coat. So we have those on here that we'll be using. This one right here is a dip bond. This is from a brand that is no longer around, and the brand that I actually started with, and this is what they put on before they do any dip. And it just kind of, it's almost like an alcohol essentially that kind of just dries it out just enough so that there's no oils from your skin, because that's what's going to create separation between the dip and your nail and make them not last as long. So I find this to be very helpful. But if you don't have this, you could use just some regular alcohol, 99%, 70%. Spray your nails once they're completely clean before you start your dip process. Spray them with this and just wipe them and make sure there's no fuzzies or anything. And this will kind of act the same as this. It's just making sure your nails don't have any oils on the actual nail bed, so that all of the product we're about to put on, the new dip, will actually stay. Okay. And then the last thing I have is just a cuticle oil. This is one from the same brand, but you could use any kind of cuticle oil. I highly recommend it. And that's kind of it. The only other things I have are the powders, which I'll go over when we get to that step. But the first thing I'm going to do, besides take off my jewelry, is I'm going to prep my nails for getting rid of the dip that I have on. And the way that I like to do this is use my bigger drill that I showed you. And this one's got a kind of a coarse bit on it. And I will kind of work at my nails and get this down pretty thin. If you get too thin, or if you do one spot for too long, it can get hot because this is moving pretty quickly. And so I'm going to get these down so they're pretty thin, and then I'm going to show you how I choose to use acetone to get the rest of it off, to get a completely clean nail. There's so many different methods, and you may have a preferred method, and that's totally fine, but I'm going to show you what I use to get it off, because I find it fast and easy and really easy to clean up the mess from using acetone. So I'm going to take this off. Once I get this off, I'll show you how I soak the last little bit off, and then we'll get ready to do the dip powder. Okay, so I wanted to show you a comparison of my nails side by side, because all I've done so far is use the drill to drill these down pretty thin, but I wanted you to see just how thin I get them. And so this is the hand, obviously, that I've drilled down. And this is what it was before. Now these are a little discolored from sunscreen and lotions that I use. They discolor. And so but this is like basically the white base that's left. So most of the color that was on here, I've already gotten off. So you can kind of see, obviously, the difference here. So there's not a whole lot left to soak off, which is why it goes so quickly. Now, if you do not have a drill, or this one will take way too long, then you can use the rough side of your nail file and really get in there and get that whole shine and as much off as you can. And before you soak them, however you choose to soak them. But I just wanted to quickly show you the difference between the two sides. And then I'm going to go do this side, and then we'll talk about how I like to soak them. Okay, be back in a minute. So one thing that I think a lot of people struggle with is you're dominant with one hand. So I'm right-handed. So whichever hand you're dominant with, that's the hand that you're most comfortable using the tools in, and the opposite hand, you feel like you can make that hand look really good, right? And you struggle with making your dominant hand look good because you're having to use your opposite hand, your non-dominant hand, to do that one. So obviously I started holding it with my right hand because I'm dominant with my right hand, and I got this off pretty well. And you'll find that I just kind of hold my non-dominant hand still and move my right hand because that's the one that I have the most control over. So how do I do this hand? Well, I use the same concept. I hold it a little differently, okay, but I basically keep my non-dominant hand still, and my dominant hand is always the one that moves. So you'll see that I kind of don't really move this hand a whole lot. Like before, I was holding this like a pencil and I just had full control, right? But with this, I kind of just... So maybe if you're struggling with doing your dominant hand and using the tools in your left hand, or whichever your non-dominant hand, then try keeping the dominant hand the one that moves, and the non-dominant hand, the one that stays still. I hope that helps. It helps me, and honestly, the more I did it that way, the more I started to feel more comfortable, and I could start using my non-dominant hand and kind of became a little ambidextrous. So I just wanted to show that to you all as I start on this hand, because I am dominant with my right hand. So using my left hand can be a little challenging, but the more you practice, the easier it gets, I promise. I did not start doing it this easily when I first started out. So hang in there, keep practicing, take your time, especially if you're using one of these drills. They're very powerful. Don't turn them up too fast. Read the instructions that come with yours for sure. And just keep in mind, the tips that I'm sharing with you are my personal experience. I am not a licensed nail tech, nor did I go to school for this. This is my own experience, but I have been getting my nails done for over 20 years, and I've asked the salon so many questions over the years, and I've just kind of learned a lot. So again, I'm not a professional. Please do all of these things at your own risk. Use the tools at your own risk. And please try, you can easily hurt yourself with these things. So please be very, very careful and work up to something like this. Like I said, I had been doing my nails for a long time before I invested in one of these. And even then, I will still get myself sometimes with it. And so you have to be very, very careful and build up the practice. So, all right, I'm going to keep doing these. See how quickly it starts to go down? So I'm going to keep doing these till they look like this hand, and then we'll soak them off. Okay, as you can see, it makes quite a mess, which is why I put down a little towel to use. So what I'm going to do is go toss this into the trash, all this, like, brush off my towel here, but I wanted to show you my nails. I'm going to go wash my hands real quick, but I got them pretty good. I always get this hand a little thinner than this hand because, again, this is my dominant hand. So now that we're done, I'm going to clean this up. We're going to come back and soak the rest of this off. Okay, this is how I soak my nails. So this is just a glass bowl, and this is just a little wash rag that I have, and I got it really, really wet. It's like drippy wet, and I microwaved it for a minute, so it's pretty hot. And I have a little Ziploc bag, and I just open up my little Ziploc baggie here and set it there. And acetone tends to work really well when you can heat it up a little bit. So I'm just going to pour the acetone right into the little bag, right on top of that hot water and hot rag. I just had a little bit left in this bottle, so I'm just going to pour the whole thing in. And I'm going to let this warm up a little bit, but what I do is when I put my nails in, I kind of use the wash rag to brush my nail on it, you know, through the bag to kind of rub it off, and this warmed up acetone will work faster. And so that's what I'm going to do. So I got my little bag with my acetone in my hot bowl here, and I just do one hand at a time. You can stick both in if you have a bigger bag. And you can see I'm just kind of rubbing this. And you're just going to do this until they start to come clear or clean. And then you can kind of rub the thumb on the side. But having something to kind of rub up against actually really helps expedite the process, other than just like a lot of people will put cotton swab, soak it, and then like one of those little clamp things or foil. And it's just sitting there soaking. But this is soaking and actively rubbing it off at the same time. So it's just kind of, for me, a faster method. And when I'm done with both hands, I can zip this shut and toss it. So you don't pour this down the drain or anything like that. It goes right in the trash can, and it's nice and sealed, and I don't have to worry about it. So that's what I like to do. This is my preferred method. I can use the side of the bowl, whatever I need to get the thumb. And I just keep working on it until they're already getting better. But it just takes a few minutes for each hand. And then when we're done with this, I'm going to wash my hands with soap and water, get them really clean, and then we'll prep our nails and then start dipping. Okay, so I'm sitting here scrubbing, and I just wanted to show you this hand I have not done, and this hand I have. So they come out clean, and you can just see how my nails have always been this thin, so don't judge my nails. This is why I dip. But I'm going to do the other side. There's a little bit still right there, so I'm going to try to get that little side, and then I'm going to do this side, wash my hands, seal this off. I want to point out that I am using 100% acetone. 100%. I find that anything less than 100% really struggles to get dip off, or gel, or any of that stuff, other than just like regular nail polish. So I just use acetone. There we go, all done. So now I'm going to switch to this hand. So now I am just trimming my nails down. I'm taking all my length off basically and starting fresh. I actually do this every couple of times. My nails grow pretty fast, and because of my job and what I do, sewing and doing videos with long nails can actually be quite challenging. So when they get to this length, they're just too long for me, and I need to trim them down anyways. So I'm going to do that, and that's what I'm left with. So the next thing I like to do, because I just washed my hands, is to get this little drill out and the little set that it comes with. And this one right here is a cuticle pusher. So I'm going to use this one to just clean up my nails and get around my cuticles to push them back. This one's really easy to use. I just like to get right along the edge. Eliminates the cuticles. Nail prep is a big part of what makes your dip powder last and stay on and go on well. So taking the time to do all of these steps, I know it takes a little bit of time. And yes, it's a little longer than if you were to go to the salon, because they're professionals and they do this all day and they can do it much faster and they have all the fancy tools. But I mean, I've been at the salon for a couple of hours, and when you get to the point where you're doing this like I do all the time, it gets easier and easier, and you find that it's like, I can do this late at night before I go to bed, watching. I usually set up a little TV tray in front of the TV, watch a movie while I'm doing it. And it really isn't bad at all. Or I plug in like my AirPods and I listen to an audiobook or something. So, and then I can do it on my own time. I don't have to worry about like how long is the wait at the salon if I'm just walking in or making an appointment. And it's just, like I said, gotten so expensive. See the difference already? Looks better, but I'm going to take one of these little buffing squares. And just buff my nails. Nice and smooth. And then this is that dip bond. And I just put a layer on that. See how it kind of spreads out? It's just like alcohol. So if you don't have dip bond, just spray some alcohol in there and let it dry out. But now my nails are prepped and ready for dip. So let me go do this hand and then we'll meet back here and start our dip. So once you're done, you can utilize some little clippers like this to get any excess like cuticle and trim it that way as well if you need to. But that little tool, the little cuticle pusher bit on that drill, works really well. It's also great for like any hangnails or anything you might have. But we're gonna put my dip bond on here, or you can use your alcohol just to really clean up the nail. And it looks nice. Alright, so I usually do this twice because I've touched things. I've most likely touched my face. I've touched my other hand. You just get so much oil on your skin, on your nails. So it can't hurt to do it twice. All right, so now that's done. We need to get our colors out. So the one thing that you're always going to need, no matter what color you use, is a base or top coat. So this is just a clear dipping powder. It is in the jar for double dip, but I like the size of this jar, so I've just been refilling it with the brand that I actually like. So this is the clear, essentially clear base. Where's my little tool here? And what I do is I take this little tool, or any sort of little tool, toothpick, whatever you want to use, and just stir it up so it's nice and loose. And this is going to be our base and our top coat. The color we're using today is called Pink Lemonade. This is a brand called Nail Boo. I really like their powders. I'm not a big fan of their dip liquids, which is why I use another brand for the liquids. But I do like their powders, and I have a lot of colors to choose from. So this is a brand new one that I just got in the mail today. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I posted a story on my Instagram. So if you're not following me over on Instagram, you should. It's Craft with Bethany. And I do a lot of, oh, this is glittery too, or shimmery, I should say. Wow, that is neon pink. I've never worn a color this pink before. I decided to get it and I'm super excited about it. But anyways, you should go follow me over on my Instagram because I let my followers decide which of my new colors I should use for my video tutorial. And this is what they chose. So this is Pink Lemonade, and it is quite pink. So I'm excited to see it. Now this one I am going to pour into this little tray here just to make it a little easier to dip. These jars are pretty small and they're pretty compact. So when you dip down in, if you put too much of the liquid on, it can smudge and bunch up, and that's not cute. This one's a bigger jar and I don't really have that issue, but the smaller jars, it can happen. So I'm gonna use this little tray and we're just gonna pour some in there and see how this goes. I've never used this tray before, so we're gonna give it a go, but we're gonna dip this way instead of dipping down. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do is our base. We're gonna do a single layer of our base clear, and we're gonna use our base liquid. This can be pretty thick, and that's fine, but you just wanna use as little as possible. So with the first coat, I don't go all the way back to the cuticle. We kind of do maybe half or 3/4 of the nail. So about that much, and it's a very thin coat, okay? You see that? I'm not going all the way to the back, and then I'm just going to dip it into the dip powder, tap it off, and there you go. That simple, okay? And we're gonna keep going. And I tend to just put a little on and then wipe the excess off the side of the bottle. There we go. This is creating a nice foundation to build upon with our color. And remember, if you get any of this liquid on your skin, you're going to want to get that off before you dip. If you don't, it's okay, but it does make it a little messy to clean up. But once it dries, it does kind of pop off the skin pretty easily. So you can see I don't have a lot on my brush, just a little. If it pulls at all at the end of your nail, you got a little too much, so you need to take some off. There we go. One more. All right. so what I do after that, because I'm going to have to switch hands, is I flip my hand over and I brush off the excess from my fingertips, but I do not brush the top. I do not brush the top until I'm done doing this hand. So I want this to set a little bit. So I'm going to just brush off my fingertips so I can use the brush to do this side. And then once I'm done with this side, I'll brush off my fingertips over here and then I'll come back and brush this off. So that's kind of my method. So I'm going to go do this side and then we'll talk about the next step. Okay, so I did this hand and I brushed off the top of this hand. And this is just a clear base. So we're going to set that aside and then we're going to use that again after we do our color because it acts as like a top coat before we buff so we don't take off the color, if that makes sense. Okay, so this is our color that we're using today, Pink Lemonade, and we're just going to jump right in. So same process, and I'm going to go right over where we were before. You might find that now that we've got a little powder on there, you might need a little bit more base liquid, but not much. Okay, so doing the thumb is always a little tricky, but let's give this a go. Okay, well, this little pot is full. It's my first time using it. Not bad. Not bad. Okay, let's move on. Let's try it again. The thumb is always a little tricky because it's a weird angle. Let's do this one. And so each time I do a coat, I work my way back a little further. It's going to give you a natural, gradual shape with the nail versus like something really thick and bulky. All right, and remember, we need a little towel or napkin or something down because this can get a little messy. That's okay. I do find that the dip part is my favorite part, and I also find that it goes pretty quickly. Now, for coats, so I did the base coat. We already did this once. This is my first coat of the color. And I will probably do 2, maybe 3 coats of color because I do very thin coats. And then I'll do one more top coat. And again, I do very thin coats. I find that doing multiple thin coats is better than doing like the thick coats. It's just easier. You get a better coverage, better shape, smoother. It's taking some getting used to, but we're getting there. I may have filled it a little full. I wasn't really sure, so we're learning this part together with this little tray. And it'll probably just like take some practice for me to get used to using it. But I wanted to show it as another option if you would prefer that over just dipping it right into the little jars. All right. There we go. So now I'm going to turn my hands over and brush some of this excess off and leave it on top. And I'm going to brush off my base that I had on here. All right, so now I'm ready to do this hand. So I'm going to do this hand, then we'll come back for a second coat because I want you to see how this color changes once you get it wet with the liquid. Okay, so I've brushed the excess off on this hand. I've already dipped my right hand. So let's do our second coat on this hand. Now what's always kind of cool, and this is kind of the point where you find out what the color's really going to look like, is once you get this wet with this second coat. And then you can kind of, because I will tell you, your dip powder is always lighter than what it will look like once you're done applying it. It will always be a little darker once it's on your nail with a top coat. So, all right, so there it is. Now I just want to show you how I dip in the jar. And I'm going to do my thumb because I find it easier in the jar and I just go straight down. And because I'm doing a thin coat, I don't get any bunching or smudge right here where it builds up and then you have to get it off. If you do a thick coat and you dip and you get a little hump right here where the liquid has smushed as you went down into the jar or into a tray, you're going to have to get that off before it sets. It's a lot harder to get it off when it's dry. And these dry very quickly. But I'm really liking this color. And we might be able to get away with just 2 coats because it is a pretty bold color. I typically do more neutrals and lighter colors like creams and whites and tans. And I typically do 3 colors because I don't want to see my nail through it. But with a darker or bolder color, you can usually get away with 2 coats. But again, personal preference. If you're doing thin coats, it shouldn't build up the nail a lot. Between 2 coats of color or 3 coats of color. I definitely got this little tray too full. That's okay. We're learning together. Okay, so I'm going to put another layer of this base liquid on my thumb and decide if I feel like I need a 3rd coat of the color or if we can go straight to the top coat. And this honestly is personal preference. But I can still see, and you may not be able to see online, but I can still see where my nail bed ends and the tip of my nail starts, and I'm not a big fan of that, personally. So I am going to do 1 more coat of color, and then we'll come back and do the top coat, which is the clear. Okay? Okay, so I did my 3rd coat on both hands, so I'm going to move that out of the way. And I'm going to come back to my clear coat to do a quick top coat of the clear. This is just going to protect the layers of color, so when we do go to file and shape and buff, we're not removing the color. We've got a little protective layer of our clear, and that just makes it look really nice. There we go. So I'm just going to do a quick dip. See, it doesn't change the color at all. So let's keep going. All right, so we are done with our dip, and we can put all of this away. And what we're going to do next is the activator. This right here is going to, this little activator right here is going to help harden everything in place. It is okay if this gets on your skin. It's not going to hurt anything unless you have a paper cut, and you will find it. But do a nice, good layer. We're going to let this sit for a minute and let it really soak in. This is going to harden or activate all of those things in the dip that's going to make it nice and hard. This is why we don't have to use like lamps or let it sit here and dry. It dries very quickly. I'm going to say this just for transparency. This hand, I used the tray, except for the thumb. This hand, I dipped straight into the jar, and there's no difference. I don't see a difference. So it's totally personal preference. I will say dipping into a very full jar can be hard. So even if you don't have one of these, maybe dump some out or put some in the lid so it's not so full. I do know that I've seen people use these trays and just fill them up a little bit and slide the finger in, but not get the whole nail covered, just the tip or just halfway to do like a cool ombre effect. You can level up there if you want, but let's master just doing the basics, okay? So my nails these are hard, they're good to go. So what I'm going to do now is get this little tool out, and we're going to switch to the shaper tip. And this is where I'm going to kind of, if I've got any liquid on my skin at all, you'll definitely feel it. I really don't do it too bad, but it can happen, especially on this hand since this is my dominant hand. But you're going to go around the edge of the nail and then smooth it out, and you'll see what I'm doing. But I'm pulling the skin away. We're going to really smooth this out. This is where we're taking our time to get a nice natural shape to our nail. It's so smooth compared to this. It's so smooth. Now, my edges are a little rough. I did not shape my nails yet because I like to do it at this point. And so I'll take my file and get around these edges. I am going to round off these edges. I don't want a hard square today. But I find it easier for me to do this at this stage because you saw at the beginning how thin my nails are. And so filing my nails with no dip on them is actually really uncomfortable for me. If you prefer to do it then, you absolutely can. There is no right or wrong way for that. But I like to wait. I just kind of trim them down to the length that I want, but then I'll do the final shaping at this stage. Again, personal preference. There's no right or wrong way to do that. And you may get more of the shape at, shape it down at the beginning and then just fine tune it here. So there we go. So after that, after we do all of the nails, I like to take this little buffer . All right, so I got this nail looking really good. Obviously my skin's really dry around here and we're gonna take care of all of that. My nail looks really good. So when I'm done doing my nail and I've shaped it, I've filed it, I've buffed it and cleaned it off, I'm gonna come back with another coat of the activator. This will really highlight any areas that you might have missed. This looks pretty great. I'm very happy with how this looks. This is the final step before we do a top coat, okay? So what I'm going to do is those same things. I'm going to shape and file and buff these three things on all of my nails. So I usually do all this, then all this, and all that on all of my nails, and then I will do activator on all of them. I'll let it sit for a minute, and then I go wash my hands with water only. No soap at this point. Just do a quick rinse of your hands, and then you're going to want to use a microfiber towel or something that doesn't produce any lint to really dry your nails before we do the top coat. Okay? See how nice and smooth these are compared to these, and this the shape and overall. So like just take the time to buff them, shape them. These are super smooth. These are still rough. So while these are setting with the activator, I'm going to work on this set. Okay, so as you can see, my nails are all filed and done and look super nice. I'm really happy with them. But now it's time for top coat. You'll see that I cleared off my space and cleaned it up because top coat, you do not want anything sticking to your top coat. So this is the top coat right here. And I do have a little paper towel here. So one thing about the activator, it's a hardener. So when you put it on here, sometimes it'll transfer to your top coat brush. And what will happen is this brush will get hard. That is why this set of liquids, dip liquids, comes with another one that is for cleaning your brush. But if I'm going to give you a little trick to help with that. So on the first, we're going to do 2 coats of top coat. On the first coat, every time I brush some on, like so, after I do a nail, before I stick it back in there, I am brushing the excess off on a paper towel. And then I'll go to the next one, and then I will give it a good brush. And it just kind of helps get any of the top coat that's still on the brush that may have touched the activator that's starting, it'll harden so quickly. It'll help it prevent from doing that. Now, out of all the dip liquids I've tried, and this is the 3rd type of dip liquid that I have tried, this is the only one that I don't really run into that issue very much, if at all. The other ones I couldn't even get through one hand, even with this method, before it would start to harden and I wasn't able to get a smooth application. And it was a pain in the rear. So that's why I like these liquids, because it does not do that. And it's so nice. All right. So there's our first top coat. This takes about 2 minutes to dry, not long at all. And instead of waiting for it to dry, I'm going to go ahead and do the other hand. Okay, so that hand is done. And I'm going to come back over here and do another top coat on this side. And it dries that quick. I hope this video has helped you guys find some helpful tips, maybe some encouragement to give this a try. Maybe give it a try again if you've tried before and not had success. Don't quit. Dip nails are so nice, and they look so good, but they are pricey to get done. And in this economy, it is hard to justify it sometimes. But we all want to have nice looking nails. It just makes us feel better. So don't give up. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments or send me a DM over on Instagram and I'll be happy to help. Like I said, everything I've used today in this tutorial is linked in the description below. But if you can't find something, just let me know. But it's all there. Here are the finished nails. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to let these completely cure. Okay, I'm going to let these completely dry, and then I'm going to add some cuticle oil, whatever kind of cuticle oil you want. I like to do an oil right after, but then in between, like every day or every other day, I will use this Sally Hansen Cuticle Rehab. I keep this in my purse. It's like a thicker balm, almost like a chapstick. It's thicker, and you squeeze it and brush it around, and it kind of soaks in. So it's a really good cuticle treatment day to day. Okay, and this is not cheap, but it lasts so long. Like, I've had this tube for a long time. But this is what I'm going to use today to get that instant hydration with the oil around my nails. But I'm going to sit here and not touch anything for a minute and let these completely dry before I do the oil, and then they're done. So if you find this video helpful, I hope that you will save it to a favorite, so then when you do sit down to do your nails, you come back and watch. I've marked chapters so you can skip ahead to the part that you need help with. If you do enjoy this video, please share it with someone that also wants to learn how to do their own dip polish. I know this is outside of my usual content, but like I said, I have been asked for this so many times. And I finally was like, you know what, I'm going to sit down and do this today because I am going to do my nails. And so why don't I just plug in a light and turn on my camera. So I hope you have found this helpful. Like I said, this is a very thorough video. I've seen very short, quick, sped up ones, but I wanted to make sure you guys were set up for success. So I know it's a longer video, but I hope it gives you the confidence to give dip powder and doing your own dip nails a try. You do not have to have long nails to do it. You can have short nails, you can have long nails, whatever you want. But I hope it encourages you to give it a try and just start with one color, okay? You don't need a lot, just to make sure you like it. Everybody has most of these tools that I've shown today. but I do have a few extras in here that really do help make the process smoother and easier and get that nice professional finish. So there you go. There's my nails today. And I think for getting started, obviously you need the set of liquids. You need a clear, you need a color of some kind. Doesn't have to be neon pink, but I do love the nail boot colors. And you do need a couple of tools. I do recommend this little drill, a nail file, the little buffing pads. You definitely need a little brush, and you know, the kind of the basics to get started. That's not a whole lot. Definitely take the time to get the basics, give it a try. Let me know how it goes, and if you need any help or any questions, and if you do your nails and you post it on social media, please tag me at Craft with Bethany on Instagram. I would love to see your finished nails, and I hope this has helped you, and there you go. Happy nails!